Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Kirinor Holmeswelp the 17th. My name is Adam, and today I'm giving you my review of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide by Gary Gygax. I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and Patron patrons and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can even pick up Dragonlance Media or get $10 signing up to start playing games using my affiliate links. Don't forget to pick up a free copy of Dragons of Ash and Twilight on dlsaga.com as well. Now, this is my perspective only. If yours differs, that's okay. Share your thoughts in the comments below, or if you're tuning in live, put them in the live chat, and we'll just sort of riff a little bit, have a little bit of fun. Look, book has been out for a while, at least a day. So you probably have some experience with it and some opinions about it. Share them. I'd love to hear from you. All right. So, hey Justin, how you doing, man? Thanks for tuning in. The Dungeon Master's Guide was released in 1979 by Gary Gygax. It was the second book of rules for the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game. That's right. The book that had all of the rules for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons was the second one to come out. Not, of course, including the Monster Manual, which was already out. It was the very, very first one. So it's a little bit odd. But what it did was caused all sorts of mishmashing of OD&D, BD&D, and AD&D play styles, which didn't really go away. People just got comfortable with it. I'll get into some of that here in a second. Now, I've already read through this entire Dungeon Master's Guide on this channel. If you're interested in hearing someone read it and to go literally cover to cover, then by all means, check out that series. I think there's like 19 or 20 or something like that episodes. It started at 2-hour increments and went down to 1-hour increments near the end, just because of time. I didn't have enough time to devote 2 hours to everything. But in my humble opinion, it is the best Dungeon Master's Guide. So, the iconic cover for the Dungeon Master's Guide shows adventurers fighting, not this one, this is the later cover. It'll cycle through them. Shows adventurers fighting in a Efreet, and it's only when you look at the back cover that you realize the battle is actually being fought on the elemental plane of fire in the city of Brass. And of course, at the time, players who wanted more information on that legendary locale would need to wait a few decades for the release of ALQ 4 Secrets of the Lamp, which was released in 1993. Just a little tidbit there for everyone. Now, you could also learn it by playing in Robert Kuntz's tournament adventure in the late 80s, but I wasn't playing tournaments. I've never played a tournament, and so I would never have known that if I hadn't been for the notes. The cover was later replaced with Jeff Easley illustration of a dangerous-looking dungeon master himself. Of course, that is the effigy of all of us dungeon masters. Opening the door wide to adventure for your players. And the interior artwork was done by David C. Sutherland III, Dave Trampier, Darlene Pecule, Will McLean, David S. LaForce, and Errol Otis. It includes a few pieces that would surprise modern players, including some partially nudes and some cartoons, both of which were common in early D&D releases. That's right, they didn't take themselves too seriously back in the day. They tried to have a little bit of fun. And I, for one, loved it. There's nothing better as a young Adam than sitting on my bed with my feet in the air on my belly, flipping through the Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, and Dungeon Master's Guides, looking at all of the illustrations, all the artwork, and the cute little comics, and laughing at them, and just having a great time just flipping pages. I mean, that's what it was like back in the day. You know, if you didn't have a game set up or it was a rainy day or you couldn't go out for some reason, maybe you were grounded. I got grounded a bit. You get in trouble, what are you going to do? You're a kid. And so you just sort of sit home and just flip pages. A really good friend of mine in middle school gave me his first edition version of the Dungeon Master's Guide with that early painting of fighting the Efreet. And it fascinated me. I absolutely loved everything about it. You bought Gary Gygax's original Beast Manual 7 years ago. It's all pages with notes. They're around 12 beasts per page. Nice. I'd love to see a picture of that. That sounds pretty awesome. All right, so in 1979, the AD&D rules were finally completed, and players now could play pure Advanced Dungeons & Dragons games, if they wanted. Many new players surely did, at least tried, but the line between OD&D, Original Dungeons & Dragons, and BD&D, Basic Dungeons & Dragons, which is the Holmes box set at the time, and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons remained fuzzy throughout the early 80s, and older players were just as likely to stay with their hybrid homebrews than try to change up the rule sets and go official AD&D. And that's what I did for years. We just took the AD&D books I had, the basic Holmes box set that I had, and just sort of played around with it. I mean, the box set was presented as levels 1 through 3, and so we always started with that, even though the rules are completely different. And then we would, move on as the player characters advanced in level to the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Or later, when I got older, we would just start with AD&D. But it was always this weird amalgamation. And even when 2nd edition came out, we were referencing the AD&D books a lot of the time. Because, really, the rule sets didn't change a terrible ton. But really, it was for this book specifically. Because of the appendixes in this book were so good that you couldn't just not bring it to the game table. You had to bring all of your books together. It just felt more genuine and real. I don't know why. That's just how I did it. So TSR records 14 official printings of the original Dungeon Master's Guide. The 6th printing, published just 4 months later in December, brought the first large-scale change to the book. It incorporated extensive errata from Dragon Magazine number 35, March 1980, and even added 2 appendices, O, encumbrance of standard items, and P, creating a party on the spur of the moment. Now, this and all later printings were labeled as Revised Edition. The 8th printing was the one that replaced the cover as part of the general upgrade to TSR's new trade to dress. The new books all feature Jeff Easley's artwork and an orange spine. So yeah, this was the original one that I had. I miss it. I just miss it. One thing about the Dungeon Master's Guide, because AD&D was sort of stagger released, and players already existed, especially ones that were going to be picking up AD&D, already existed and were playing their OD&D or BD&D or some amalgamation thereof with AD&D books as well. They rarely went full AD&D rule sets. And that's why even today, you have so many people either not being aware of the actual AD&D rules because they never actually played them. It was all homebrew amalgamation of rules. Or they just totally hand-waved them away because of their complexity. There's a reason why it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and not Basic Dungeons and Dragons. And a lot of people just did not like the minutia involved. And that blows my mind because you have entire series of people nowadays who play AD&D and disregard a whole lot of the rules. Stuff that I find incredibly important and are just sort of hand-waved away. But what are you going to do? Everyone plays the game differently, right? So the 1st edition Dungeon Master's Guide contained all of the rules for AD&D, something that modern books will not represent at all. If you want to learn how to play 5.5 edition Dungeons & Dragons, do not get the Dungeon Master's Guide. It will not tell you how to play the game. It will not tell you the rules of the game. It only tells you how to Dungeon Master the game. And that's crazy to me, but to modern parlance, that's just how it is. Now, if you want to learn how to run the game, you have to get the player's handbook, which makes no sense at all, but that's what they ended up doing. They changed it over. I think it was 3rd edition when it started doing that. I'm trying to remember to my 2nd edition reviews. I don't quite remember. I'll have to double check. But it's weird, right? What are you going to do? Yeah, Instagram would be fine. I'll have to, if maybe you could tag me if I'm not asking too much from you. More recent Dungeon Master's Guides have become books about how to run D&D, while the original Dungeon Master's Guide instead was the system's core rule book. So because it was presented in a very mishmash fashion that felt more like a random assortment of articles than a coherent rule book, players either didn't discover the rules or totally ignored them when they did discover them. And a perfect example of this is if you want to find out what you have to roll to discover a secret door, you have to look in the example of play because there's no other ruling location that it tells you that. Literally, you have to look at the example of play to figure that out, which is wild, but it's buried. And that's not the only one. That's just one example. So a lot of the rules in order to play the game are just buried in mounds and mounds of text. And yeah, that is a huge flaw. But if you've read the book, then it's not a big deal at all because you know where it all is. So it's one of those things where you either read it cover to cover and learn where all the different pieces are, or you just ignore a lot of it and just pick out the pieces you like. The book is full of tiny tidbits of information, often hidden in the most unusual places. And there's three main things that I wanted to bring up here. Characters are better. And this is the result of changes to the ability score generation method. In AD&D, players rolled 3d6 in order of their characteristics. In AD&D, the least generous system has players rolling 4d6, and it gives you a bunch of other options as well. So if you roll 4d6, you just throw out the worst number, you keep the highest 3, you end up with having slightly more powerful characters and not such fragile paper warriors. And this is actually great if you want to latch on to playing a single character rather than having a folder full of characters that you just pull out the new ones when the one you're playing dies, which happened from time to time. I'm curious. People playing modern editions, do you have your characters die very often? Because it doesn't seem like it should happen with how empowered player characters are nowadays. But certainly back in the day, it was a problem. Like if you made a bad decision or you just were unfamiliar with a monster or a dungeon, you could die like with one bad step. And that was it. Nothing to do with it. I mean, just poison itself typically did not do damage. It just killed you. Literally. You rolled your save. If you didn't save, you're dead. That's it. It's brutal. So then combat is also expanded from ODD and BDD. So it has over 20 pages of combat. It introduces a segmented combat system, which helps with spells interweaving with melee. And theoretically, this is modified by weapon speed and even by a comparison of weapon versus armor type. But the complexity of the AD&D combat system was sufficient always keep in the weapon versus armor type, because it actually forces players to think tactically and use weapons tactically. Certain slashing weapons are better against some armor types. Certain piercing weapons are better against some armor types. And so it behooves you to have both a mix of blunt, piercing, and slashing weapons at the ready so that you could switch them out depending on what you're fighting. And I just always loved that idea because it feels more real, you know? Poking a dagger through chainmail makes more logical sense than slashing chainmail. Using a blunt spiked weapon against plate mail makes more sense than trying to poke through plain mail. So, you know, that's the justification for those weapon versus armor types. And it just, to me, it makes sense. So I always loved including them, especially when it came to the segments in casting. But what this does is it either requires you to pay close attention to the traditional way of AD&D, which is declaring your actions and then following through with all the actions after you've rolled surprise and initiative, or you just pay attention to this. What I like to do is just pay attention to the segments. So if a caster starts casting a magic missile, well, that's one segment. That's 6 seconds. You just quickly do it. It's done. It's gone. You don't think about it. But if you're casting a more powerful spell, well, it's going to take you some time. And other monsters are going to hear you and see you doing it. So they're going to come up and try to slash you to make you lose the spell. And again, tactically, it just makes sense to me. So I really, really appreciate having that there. And then, of course, everything is detailed with unusual one-off rules in AD&D. Every time you turn a couple of pages in the Dungeon Master's Guide, you'll find a new rule for most 1E GMs probably don't use or even care about. Adjustments for pursuit and evasion based on party size. Special AC rules for unhelmeted characters. Organizational suggestions for monsters, insanity lists, intoxication effects and recovery, government forms, infravision that causes the eyes to glow bright red. It's all there, and it's rich. It is just fantastic. And I'm always of the mindset of learn the rules as written, and that is more challenging, admittedly, with AD&D, but I've read them all. So if you want to do it at 2 times speed, you can listen to them all. And as long as you know the actual ruling, then modify it to fit your table. But if you just ignorantly go in to try to play and you don't know the rulings and you just do whatever you want, you might as well not be playing AD&D. You might as well be playing some other game system, which there's nothing wrong with that, but just don't claim to be playing AD&D because you clearly don't know it and you're not. So again, I don't think there's any right answer when it comes to how to play tabletop role-playing games, because it's always whatever games you like in the way you like to play them. That's what's important. But if you're going to claim to play a specific game, at least know the rules of that game and then break them later. So some of the appendixes were apparently heavily influenced by Bob Bledshaw of Judges Guild, who already produced notable GM aids like Ready Ref Sheets in 1977 and 78, and then sent them off to Gary Gygax, and he adjusted them and included them as appendices in this Dungeon Master's Guide. So Appendix A is a random dungeon generation table, which allows for solo AD&D play in an infinite dungeon. I never have and never will use it. Appendix C contains encounter tables for monsters and includes AD&D's most infamous subtable, the Random Harlot table. Oh, those were the days. Appendix E lists all of the AD&D monster stats, including their experience point values, which has been missing from the monster manual. And Appendix N, the inspirational and educational reading list. And this is the most famous of the appendices. Looking through that suggested reading or inspirational reading will give you incredible insight. Now, I have to admit, I haven't read all of those books. I'm not sure I've read any of those books. I've never read a single Conan the Barbarian book. Not one. I've always intended to. I've always wanted to. I've read Tarzan. I don't know why. I've read Sherlock Holmes. But for some reason, I never got around to Conan the Barbarian. And I know I'm going to dig it once I do, and I know I'm going to get to it, but I just never have. And I know that's on the list, and it kind of makes me feel bad. It shouldn't matter at all, but it kind of does, because I review tons of books on this channel. Just never one of those. Well, hello, Mr. Dungeon Master's Guide. Hope you're not dissing this epic volume. Oh no, Merlins. Merlin, Elminster, Gandalf. Okay, I can't. I did it once, I can't do it again. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. I love this book. I love this book more than any of the Dungeon Master guides that followed it, even till today. And I will forever die on that hill. The appendix that tells you all of the different herbs and roots and stuff like that, plants, and their smell, scents, and their effects. Like, come on, you can't get better than that. That's amazing. And you should always have that, because if you're playing a wizard character, there's no better thing than to like whip out that book and be like, is there any belladonna in the forest? I'm going to scavenge around for some spell components. And then you as a dungeon master can look through and be like, oh no, but you do end up finding some mistletoe and you find some, and just sort of go through some stuff and have some fun with it. I mean, and also part of it, you can help inform the look or the scent of potions to help people identify what the potions are, in case there's not like a label maker label going across it saying potion of gaseous form or something like that, which of course there wouldn't be. That would be ridiculous. So you've got to sort of test it out and see what's in it. Like dip your pinky in it and like suck on it and see what it smells like and tastes like and looks like and put it against the light and examine it. That's part of the fun, for me anyway, of playing this game. The discovery of it all, you know what I mean? Okay, so let's see. On your show, you have started your deep dive into the 1E combat system. Oh yeah, it's complex. It can be frustrating to play, and I absolutely love it. I really do. Damn it, you're gum Arabic. Yeah, see, gum Arabic. That's great. Now, the downside of AD&D. Dave Arneson was the co-author of the original D&D game. But when Gygax put together AD&D from 77 to 79, Arneson's name disappeared. And this caused Arneson to file a lawsuit in 79, which was settled in March 1981. Now, the exact terms of that, to my knowledge, are unknown, but he earns royalties for the AD&D books. And you know what? I don't hate him for it. He was an instrumental part of creating Dungeons & Dragons. Let's tip our cap to Arneson, because he deserves it. You know, he may not have done the huge development work for AD&D that Gygax did, but Gygax did it in part with what they had already done together in OD&D. So let's not shit on the dude, all right? It's a brilliant system. The combat's pure chaos if you use all the little nuances. Yeah, and it takes longer too. And here's something I never really understood. The unarmed combat rules. Now, it was clarified later in the Unearthed Arcana and changed up how they did unarmed combat. But I didn't see how it was so strange and complex in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Because really, instead of rolling a d20 and hitting a number based on, the THAC0 from the combat table matrices and the armor class number, you're just rolling percentile dice based on the armor class number. So if they have an armor class of 5, well, then it's 50. If it's 10, then it's 100 you have to roll under to grapple them or something. And it had like moves, like if you were pummeling them or something, you would roll to see if you hit. If you did hit, then you rolled another table to see what type of maneuver you achieved. It's not complex. It's not hard. It's just a little bit more time consuming, but not even a lot more. And I include that version in the DL games that I'm running because, again, I like it to feel as authentic as possible while we're trying to streamline the process because I'm only doing it 2 hours at a time. So I want to make sure we can get through a significant amount of content in that time. So I just don't think it's that difficult, and I don't think it's that crazy. There's a lot of modifiers, but every dungeon master is going to apply situational modifiers no matter what. So learn what those modifiers are and decide whether or not you're going to use them or your own or a mix thereof in the moment. It's not a big deal. No one cares. No one's going to call you out on it. And if they do, you're the dungeon master. Tell them to shut up. That's really what it comes down to. So I love this system. That's why I'm running Advanced Dungeons & Dragons games on this channel. It's a system that even upon playing 2nd edition for years as a young man, and on this channel for a while, I will always go black. I'll always go back and play Advanced Dungeons & Dragons games because it's not even pure nostalgia as well. It feels more visceral. It feels like the weight of the decisions made are infinitely more important. And that's thrilling to me. Like if I saw a K-Pack Draconian, which are the ones that poison you and then explode into acid once they die, running toward me, I would not engage in melee combat. I'd be pulling out my bow and whipping them from a distance, running back, keep hitting, kiting them across the battlefield rather than trying to engage them in melee and then get acid splashed all over me and then have to roll for my roll for my armor's saving throw to see if it gets destroyed or not. There's nothing worse than having a magic item destroyed by breath weapon or by acid or some other nonsense when you could have just stayed away. Unless, of course, it's a fireball. Then everyone's screwed. But what are you going to do? Everyone's screwed. How do you feel about randomized targeting? I use logical targeting in mind, so randomized is really up to the DM on how they want to deal with that. Casters, everyone knows a caster. If it's an intelligent monster, they know it's a caster, and they know to target them to get them out of because magic is so powerful, there's nothing you can do about it. So you have to eliminate them first. And then you got to get the weaker guys or have some of your, tank creatures target up on and pin down the big heavy hitters and then have your other guys go after the other players. So what drives me crazy is when dungeon masters defer to the players' tactics and sensibilities for how they manage monsters. The monsters exist. They're alive because they've probably faced heroes before, adventures before, and they've survived that encounter. So they know as much as the player characters do about tactics and who to target before others. They understand that, and they learn while they're in the middle of combat. So I like to have monsters, of course you have to think how intelligent they are and whether they're going to be problem solving or not. But even animals, which are animal intelligence, aren't stupid. If they're clearly outnumbered, they're going to gang up on one or they're going to leave. And that's why I really love to fall back on morale. Of course, I don't roll morale. I use logic for my morale. If there's 3 draconians, we're just going to use this as an example, facing off against 5 heroes, for some reason they engaged them because they thought the heroes were weak, and the heroes killed one of the draconians, well, now it's 2 against 5. Those 2 draconians are going to start thinking about fleeing unless they've taken one of the heroes down, and they're not going to stick around in battle. This is the opportunity for players to capture or to also run away. Not every combat encounter has to end in death. And I try to impress that on the players because that's the reality of existence. You may knock someone unconscious and then move on about your day, but to stand there and just beat them while they're dead to make sure that they're dead, that's not a common thing that happens in games. You usually just hit them and move on. So you always like to have the dice as part of the narrative. Yeah, I do that in some cases, not with morale though, because morale is a logical thing in my mind. Like, it's easy to determine whether a monster is going to run or not, just based on how hurt they are, how many are fighting them, and whether or not they have an advantage in a situation. And if not, then GGFO. Like, there's just no reason to stick around, even if the dice say they're going to fight to die. Now, if they have like a leader that, like Lord Toad, Viewmaster Toad, which demands fealty, and he's like, get in there and kill the heroes, then, they'll fight to the death. But absent that, like a pack of wolves, if they're getting their asses whipped, they will run away, 100%. They're not going to fight to the death. So it's always about survivability in everyone's case. You like the morale system when he has a great formula when you can assess the morale at a glance rather than predetermined number. Yeah, 100%. Play with no dice with a 100-sided die. That would be rough because I do like the chaos of the dice, of course. And I've only recently started not even using double damage because in 1E, it's so brutal on the player's side. It could just take them out so quick that it's just not really fair. So I've totally avoided that. But what are you going to do? All right, so that's what I love about Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. What do you like about it? Is it something that you ever looked into or learned about? Have you ever played Advanced Dungeons & Dragons at all? And if you haven't, I would challenge you. Give it a go. Chances are you're going to enjoy it. You may not play it forever, but you'll probably enjoy yourself while you do because it's just one of those experiences that you're not going to forget. And it's going to help inform and make you a better game master, knowing AD&D rules and then being able to pull some of them out and put them in later editions of the game, kind of like I do. That's what I like to do. What are you going to do? You don't like it, don't play in the game. That's how it works. All right, your game is 1E. Campaign is going on 14 years. That's awesome, dude. That is awesome. All right, well, thank you all so much for tuning in. That is going to do it for my review of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide by Gary Gygax. What is your favorite appendix? What are the rules you just ignore? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. Thank you to creator patrons Aaron Hardy and D. Robert Handy, producer patron David Galindo, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of the YouTube members. I would also like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of Dragonlance Saga. I hope you join in that celebration. So, thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.